Hello and welcome to a little behind-the-scenes look into preparing for our in-person cake decorating classes here at the Michelangelo of Cakes Academy. Most recently, we had back-to-back classes, an individual decorating masterclass on a floral hat cake, and a Mother's Day extravaganza featuring this two-tier, gravity-defying edible masterpiece. And spoiler alert, the students, artistes, chef's kiss, fabulous. We've designed our classes to prioritize the joy of cake art, supplying all the tools, tips, and tricks to enhance the creative freedom of each attendee. We strive to give both beginners and experts alike the opportunity to show up to a class, spend a couple hours laughing, snacking, and decorating a gorgeous custom cake to take home to share with their friends and family. In-house classes are an amazing time, and the creations students leave with are out of this world. But, you're thinking, what is it like? What mental, physical, and emotional fortitude is required to prepare for a class where people are showing up to do the fun part of decorating an intricate edible masterpiece? I know you're dying to find out, I'm dying to show you, so let's get into it. First things first, calling decorating the fun part of baking should subtly and strongly imply that the rest of the experience is quote-unquote unfun. That is my personal, most controversial opinion. But in order to enjoy decorating a cake, you first got to endure baking one. So we begin by baking our made-from-scratch vanilla cakes. While they're coming to life in the oven, we prepare our signature European buttercream, Swiss for frosting, and French for filling. And we do this on loop until we've got enough for everyone in class. Even though it's not my favorite part, we have a strict rule that if you're taking the time to make a cake beautiful, it better be equally delicious and worth the calories. All our recipes, by the way, are available in our online Michelangelo of Cakes Academy, so if you're interested, feel free to check that out. Once all the cakes are cool, which took long enough for me to take a whole shower, perks of working from home and the reason why my hair is wet in this video, we must then level and fill and stack and crumb coat all the cakes. The first one I'm working on is the 10-inch for the Floral Hat Cake Masterclass. It's a torted one layer that I intentionally created this swanky shape for so that the hat would look like it's sitting at an angle. For every in-house class, the student obviously needs a cake, and then I also need a cake to decorate for demonstration. So here I am putting that cake together and stealing a wee snack from the cake scraps. It's quality control, you guys. It's a really hard job, and somebody has to do it. Anyway, this masterclass was the day before our Mother's Day teapot class, and our student, Anne, absolutely rock and rolled this design. She learned tons of floral techniques and left with a unique and stunning cake. The teapot cake design features so many awesome design elements that make it extraordinarily custom, one of which is that the teapot is a carved cake tier. So that's what I'm doing here, carving down the 2-layer 5-inch cakes and crumb coating each one. They'll go into the freezer for a wee bit before I put the final layer of frosting on. In the meantime, we'll stack our 8-inch cake bases. As you can see, I have 2 bowls of buttercream. One is our authentic French buttercream that I use for filling the cakes, and the other is our Swiss meringue buttercream that I'm crumb coating and will frost the rest of the cakes with. We started this business with our signature Swiss meringue buttercream, and eventually started making the French because 1, it's mind-blowingly tasty, and 2, we needed to salvage the abundance of egg yolks that Swiss leaves you with. It's a win-win. Now it's time to get a final coat of buttercream on the teapot tiers. I started off with the intention of making these babies bottom smooth, but quickly remembered how obnoxious it is to frost a rounded edge and decided that the final design will cover the frosting anyway, so smooth enough shall suffice. Since this is a 2-tier cake design, you have to have a structure in the bottom layer so the cakes won't collapse on people as they drive them home. I have been personally victimized by a structureless cake on a hot day, so I shan't subject anyone else to that horror. The students in class are going to be decorating the sides of the cake, which means I'm responsible for having the top of the cake already taken care of, so I'm smoothing on a layer of pink buttercream for each cake. I'm going to tell you a secret. The morning of the class, I had an alarming thought that my original design, which I slaved and stressed over and created a prototype of the month before, might be equally too complicated and somehow also not time-consuming enough for this class. It's a mom and me class, so students are partnering up for one cake. The class might go too fast if it's too easy, so I freaked out and decided, mere hours before the class began, to update the design and use half of my demo cake to create a new prototype. This is the first time I've had half of my cake finished for the class. Usually I just work on the cakes along with the students, but I think I learned how incredibly convenient it is to have a portion of it finished already so we all have a visual for the end goal. Anyway, the updated design idea was to include the basket weave, which I ended up loving and felt like it was a neat element for the moms and daughters to create simultaneously. Then the swooping pink ruffles on top instead of the bottom. I left the rest of my original teapot design in place, but was committed to having this half of the cake for display during class, so here I am just finishing it off quickly before I get to the actual scheduled prep work for that morning. If you recall, the teapot cake includes several fondant elements, specifically the teapot spout, handle, lid topper, and the gravity-defying flowers. Our in-house classes are only 2 hours long. There's no time and, honestly, not enough space for each person to roll out fondant and do claymation. So I prepped this in advance. I freehand modeled each handle and spout. The cakes need baked as close to class time as possible to be fresh, but the fondant can be done a few days before so they properly harden. Then the flowers. I use a punch-out fondant tool which cuts a small flower shape and then indents some tiny details on the surface. It's quite convenient. I highly recommend having one. However, if you have 6 cakes that feature seemingly hundreds of these flowers each, I do suggest not punching them all out at once like I did. I truly, to this day, have lost feeling in my one finger from this endeavor. I also used the back end of a small paintbrush to indent the center of the flowers just to give them a little more dimension. If you thought I was finished, nay, think again. Here I am taking a quick break, having a snacky, checking my finger for feeling, which it does not have, and punching out more flowers. Here are all the tips that each student will use for their cakes. I have to be Speedy Gonzales during the class itself, betwixt instructions and demonstrations, to fill the icing bags for each person at every step because our buttercream cannot be prepped in advance. Since our house is cold, it needs to be constantly whipped to maintain a good consistency for piping, so it can only go into the bags right before it gets used. But the tips are ready all the same. In our in-house classes, we love to take a halfway break to stand up, shake it out, and have a snack, because I personally live for snacks and I think everybody else should too. But not just any snacks. Duh. We make gourmet desserts for our students to enjoy with a tea or a coffee. Here I'm making our exclusive Belgian chocolate brownie. Again, all our recipes are in our online academy if you're interested. While the brownies were baking, I made pink vanilla cupcakes for the teacup part of the cake that I unfortunately did not film. But each cake came with a teacup cupcake, and with the leftover batter, I made some mini rose cupcakes for the snack table. Brownies done, fresh out of the oven. These things are so fudgy, velvety, and literally melt in your mouth. I struggled not to eat them all before class. I also made some Russian zephyrs, which are marshmallows that I flavored with fresh raspberry jam and coconut, then piped into flowers, and here I'm just luster dusting them as a final touch. here's what the snack table mostly looked like. There's the brownies. We also made some buttery sugar cookies, the Zephyrs and mini cupcakes. In the crystal bowl in the back, there are some mango-flavored Japanese sugar candies I previously made. If I tried to pronounce what they're called, the Japanese would rightfully put me in jail, so I'll just save us all from that and say they're pretty delicious and very easy to make. Not pictured is the hot coffee we served, and also a pretty delightful salted caramel almond cake. Our salted caramel is probably our most popular recipe, and for good reason. It's crazy delish. Anyway, then it comes time to prep the individual workstations. We start off every class with a taste test. We think it's important to introduce people to what distinguishes certain buttercreams from others, and also our salted caramel versus any other. Taste is ultimately subjective, however, the consensus in every class for the favorite has been unwavering, so do with that what you will. Since this is a partnership class, some trays get some design tools and the partner gets the rest. And some individuals were taking this class as well, so their trays are brimming with everything. Here again is the display cake that I was going to work on during the class, and the table where the students work their magic. We also gave everybody a magnificent little hat hairpiece because it's fun. And then it was class time. We had a blast with everyone in class, and we were so grateful they chose to spend their Mother's Day with us. Everyone did a phenomenal job and left the class with a showstopper cake to share with their friends and family. I hope you enjoyed this little sneaky peeky behind the scenes. We hope to see you in one of our future in-house classes, and if you're not local, we'll be thrilled to have you as part of our online Michelangelo of Cakes Academy. See you soon.